picture a room full of people.
Okay.
And they are sweating, they're dancing, and just completely losing their minds to this relentless groove. The energy is visceral.
Oh,
The
yes.
floor is practically shaking. But what if I told you that the band they're dancing to is simultaneously playing mathematically impossible rhythms?
Right, like stuff that shouldn't groove at all.
Exactly. And, utilizing notes that do not even exist on a standard piano keyboard.
Yeah.
Today on the Deep Dive, we are looking at a really fascinating stack of sources. We've got music theory essays, these breathless live concert reviews, and a specific psychological breakdown of how our brains process sound.
It's a lot to dig into.
It is. And we're using all of this to understand a band that just completely shatters our expectations of experimental art.
They really do.
The band is French, and they're called Angine de Poitrine. And just so we are all starting on the exact same page, I want to quickly get the pronunciation down.
Yeah, that's crucial because it's a tricky one.
It is. So based on our guides, it's Angine.
All right, so you say on with this soft nasal sound.
Yeah, on. Followed by gene with a soft G, like the start of the word vision. Angine.
Perfect.
And then de, just a short, like, duh sound.
Duh.
And finally, poitrine. So you say pois, rhyming with spa, but with a red sound, and then trine at the end. Poitrine.
Angine de Poitrine.
Exactly. Angine de Poitrine.
What's so fascinating here is that just by existing, this band forces us to confront a really profound and persistent reputation problem in the art world.
Yeah, the stereotype.
Right, the stereotype.
Yeah.
Because when we hear the phrase avant-garde or, experimental music, a very specific, almost cinematic image immediately forms in our minds.
Oh, totally. You picture this, like, sterile, dimly lit room.
Yes.
And you imagine an audience sitting there in absolute reverent silence. Their arms are firmly crossed.
And they've got this look of, like, quiet, intense concentration on their faces.
Right. The atmosphere in that imagined room is usually so heavy with this unspoken expectation.
It's intimidating.
It is. And the labels attached to this kind of art are consistently intimidating, too. We're told that it's serious. We're warned that it's, difficult.
Yeah, it constantly gets described as academic.
Which implies you need an advanced degree merely to sit in the audience and listen to it.
Exactly. And perhaps the most damning label of all, it is often called cold.
Right.
It feels less like an invitation to a human experience and more like a test of your intellectual endurance.
A test most of us feel entirely unprepared to take, honestly.
Absolutely. And the mission of this deep dive is to examine this specific analysis of Angine de Poitrine because understanding how they operate unlocks the door to a much larger, much more vital phenomenon.
Which is how intensely complicated, heavily layered art can actually be, against all odds, incredibly fun.
Yes. To understand the magnitude of this achievement, we have to properly set up the paradox at the heart of their work. Because, make no mistake, the music created by this band is not simple.
No, not at all.
It is not your standard pop fare.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the sources detail just how complex this music actually is. Like, it features mathematically complicated structures that would look entirely at home on a chalkboard in a graduate-level university course.
Right, it's dense.
Very dense. And they utilize unconventional instruments that absolutely do not fit into standard rock or orchestral paradigms. And they heavily employ a bunch of incredibly daunting musical concepts.
They do. And let's actually look at some of these intimidating buzzwords.
Yeah.
Because these are precisely the kinds of words that build the wall between avant-garde art and the general public.
Yeah, let's break them down.
Okay, so our sources mention asymmetrical rhythms. On paper, this is a complex math problem.
Okay.
It is a division of time that absolutely refuses to resolve evenly. So instead of a comfortable, predictable march of, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4.
That's the standard backbeat.
Right, a standard backbeat. Yeah. Instead of that, it's a rhythm that feels like it has an extra limb. It might be 5 beats or 7 or 11.
Oh, wow. It's like a waltz that suddenly trips over itself but somehow keeps perfect balance.
That is exactly what it feels like.
Yeah.
Precisely. Then, the sources highlight their use of quarter tones.
Quarter tones, right.
These are part of a microtonal pitch system. So think about a standard piano keyboard.
Okay, you have the white keys and the black keys.
Right. A quarter tone is a note that sits uncomfortably directly in the crack between those keys.
Oh, I see.
Yes. So to a conventional Western ear, an ear that has been trained since birth to only recognize those specific piano keys, a quarter tone initially sounds like someone is just playing out of tune.
It sounds sour, like a mistake.
Exactly. It creates this immediate tension. Finally, there is metric modulation.
That sounds terrifying, just saying it out loud. Metric modulation.
It does. This is a highly technical process where the underlying tempo of a piece of music shifts, but it shifts based on a strict mathematical relationship to the previous tempo.
Oh, got
So it
it.
effectively pulls the rhythmic rug right out from under the listener. The speed changes, but not randomly.
So to put that in everyday terms, metric modulation is like driving a manual transmission car.
Ooh, yes, to one.
Like you are cruising at a certain speed in third gear, and suddenly you shift into fourth.
Right.
The engine RPM drops, the internal rhythm of the car completely changes, but your forward momentum continues unabated.
Yes.
The ground shifts beneath your feet, but you are still moving at highway speed.
That is a perfect analogy.
Mhm.
Now, these concepts, asymmetrical rhythms, quarter tones, metric modulations, they are academic. They are highly rigorous.
Right.
By every standard metric of music theory, this is deeply, deeply challenging material. And yet, as you mentioned at the very beginning of the deep dive, the ultimate reaction from the audience experiencing this live is not quiet, chin-stroking contemplation.
Not at all.
The reaction is sweat. The reaction is physical movement. The audience dances.
Which is the core mystery our sources are trying to solve here.
Yes, it is.
Because how on earth does a band presenting asymmetrical rhythms and microtonal pitch systems compel a room full of people to move their bodies in joyous synchronization? It doesn't make logical sense.
Well, the answer requires us to completely shift our focus. We have to look away from the sheet music and point our attention toward the biological, physical reaction of the human listener.
Okay, the physical reaction.
Right, we must analyze a fundamental truth about human perception. And that truth is, the body simply does not care about theory.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because our psychological sources break down this brain-body divide perfectly.
Yeah, they do.
The conscious brain might be trying to categorize all this incoming chaotic data. It might be desperately trying to figure out why a note sounds slightly off or why the beat feels lopsided.
To try to do the math.
Exactly. The brain is doing math. But the body operates on an entirely different, much older, and much faster processing system.
Right. The crucial revelation here is that the listener does not need to mentally process these academic concepts to physically react to them.
You don't need a degree to feel it.
Exactly. You do not need to intellectually identify an asymmetrical rhythm to feel its physical propulsion. You do not need a working knowledge of quarter tones to feel the specific tension they create in the air, in the room.
Yeah.
And you absolutely do not need to know what a metric modulation is or how to chart it on paper to feel that thrilling sensation of the ground shifting under your feet.
Wait, I need to jump in and push back on something fundamental here, just for clarity.
Sure.
Because if the music is genuinely that complex, like if the conscious brain is actually being bombarded and overwhelmed by these quarter tones and these math-heavy metric modulations, what exactly is the physical body locking onto? Like, how does the listener avoid just feeling completely alienated and lost in all that noise? If the brain is scrambling, why doesn't the body just freeze up?
That is the essential grounding question of this whole deep dive.
Yeah.
And the answer lies in the most primal, foundational question the human body asks when it encounters any piece of sound.
Okay, what's the question?
The body asks, where's the pulse?
The pulse.
Yes. The pulse is the biological life raft.
I love that phrasing.
When the music provides enough raw, undeniable physical information, which is to say, when it provides a clear, unshakable pulse, a profound cognitive shift occurs in the listener.
So the brain actually changes its approach.
Exactly. The brain is suddenly freed up. Because the body has successfully locked onto a physical center of gravity, the conscious mind is no longer desperately searching for a way to simply survive the auditory experience.
It's not in fight or flight mode anymore.
Right, exactly.
So what does this actually mean for the listener in that sweaty room?
It means the listener's brain is granted the security to subconsciously negotiate the terrifying mathematics happening on top of that pulse.
Oh, wow.
The body handles the rhythm, it holds down the fort, leaving the mind entirely free to absorb the complexity without feeling attacked by it.
Which brings us to the actual mechanical secret behind Angine de Poitrine's accessibility. Because we have to ask, how do they forge that life raft? How do they actually create this undeniable pulse amidst all the sonic chaos?
It's not by accident, I'll tell you that.
No, our sources point to a very specific strategy. The band relies on a secret engine, and that engine is repetition.
Repetition.
Mm-hmm.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, when you look at the band's own description of their work in these interviews, it's very revealing.
What do they say?
Well, They do not highlight the chaos. They don't brag about how hard the math is. They emphasize two specific phrases over and over. They
Yeah.
talk about repetitive structures and gradual transformation.
Repetitive structures and gradual transformation. That makes so much sense.
Yeah, they operate by returning over and over again to specific musical cells and tightly wound patterns.
So it's not randomness for the sake of being weird?
Absolutely not. It is deliberate, methodical looping. By hammering these repetitive structures, they pour a foundation of concrete for the listener to stand on.
It's like they're building a highly stable platform. The music might be doing something incredibly strange, like veering off into microtones or weird time signatures. But because the foundational cell keeps cycling back, the listener is never thrown off the ride.
You're safe.
Right, you always, always have something to physically hold on to. The repetition is the anchor.
To truly visualize how this secret engine operates, one of the essays in our stack provides an incredibly powerful analogy.
I really like this part.
Yeah, they suggest we need to think about this music in terms of architecture, because strange experimental music is exactly like a strange experimental building.
Okay, yeah.
It fundamentally requires anchors to keep it from collapsing under its own weight.
Let's break down this architectural analogy meticulously, because I think it completely unlocks how we consume difficult art, not just music, but all of it.
Okay, let's build the building. First, you have the foundation.
Right.
In the music of Angine de Poitrine, the foundation is the groove. This is the repetition, that unshakable pulse we just discussed. This is the bedrock.
It's the only reason the structure is stable enough for you to confidently walk inside. If the foundation is soft, the whole thing sinks.
Exactly. So that's the groove. Next, you have the unusual architecture itself.
Okay, the shape of the building.
Right. This represents the microtonal melody, the quarter tones, the asymmetrical rhythms. This is the strange avant-garde shape of the structure.
So if you were walking down the street, this is the bizarre, twisting, gravity-defying spire that catches your eye and makes you stop in your tracks.
Yeah, it's undeniably weird. It challenges your perception of geometry, but it is standing upright because it's bolted directly to that foundational groove.
It's like a Frank Gehry building. It looks like it should fall over, but the engineering underneath is rock solid.
That's a great comparison. Then we have the machinery.
The machinery?
In this musical architecture, the machinery is the looping system. These are the internal workings, the elevators, the HVAC system, the electrical grid. They keep the entire structure functioning.
Oh, I see. So the gradual transformation of the repetitive cells, that's the machinery humming quietly behind the walls.
Right. It's ensuring the building remains habitable and doesn't just look interesting from the outside. It's actually a functioning space.
And finally, you have the facade.
The facade. This is the visual performance of the band itself. This is the outward aesthetic, the paint, the windows, the lighting.
It's how the building presents itself to the neighborhood.
Yes.
The ultimate takeaway from this architectural breakdown is incredibly liberating for the listener, I think.
How so?
Because it means a building can be as absolutely weird, as defying of convention, and as structurally terrifying as the architect wants it to be, provided the foundation is solid.
Right.
Like, I don't need to understand how the structural steel was forged in order to appreciate looking at the twisted spire, as long as the floor isn't caving in beneath my feet.
Exactly. You don't need an engineering degree to walk into the lobby.
Right.
In the music of Angine de Poitrine, because there is a relentless, driving physical center, the listener is safe. You have a handrail.
A handrail, yeah.
When the music veers into the strange, the abstract, or the microtonal, you never fall, because your feet are firmly planted on the groove.
This realization forces a massive paradigm shift in how we evaluate not just this one French band, but all music, and perhaps all art.
It really does upend things.
It brings us to the central, most vital conclusion of our deep dive today, and that is this: fun is not the opposite of complexity.
That is such an important point. Fun is not the opposite of complexity. This raises a huge question about how we've been taught to consume media.
Yeah, from a very young age.
For generations, we've been conditioned to judge music, literature, and film along a very specific, very flawed axis.
What's the axis?
We place easy on one end and difficult on the other.
Right, and as our sources argue, this axis is a trap. It completely frames music as an intelligence test.
Wow. It really does. It suggests that if you want to be entertained, if you want to just have a good time, you must consume the easy, the simple, the shallow.
The bubblegum pop.
Right. And it suggests that if you want to experience true depth, you must suffer through the difficult, the arduous, the punishing.
The cold, sterile room.
Exactly. This framework completely fails to explain a phenomenon like A sweaty room full of people dancing to metric modulations.
It just doesn't map onto that reality at all.
No, it doesn't. Which is why the source material provides a vastly superior distinction, a totally new axis for us to use.
Okay.
We must stop thinking in terms of easy versus difficult and start evaluating music on an axis of abstract versus physical.
Abstract versus physical. Let's expand on this new axis because it immediately makes sense of so many of our everyday listening experiences.
Yeah, let's apply it.
Think about a piece of music that is incredibly simple on paper, maybe like a 4-chord corporate pop jingle or highly synthesized acoustic progression.
Okay, very standard stuff.
According to the old easy versus difficult axis, this should be universally loved and easily digested by everyone.
Right, because it requires zero effort.
But as we all know, a remarkably simple piece of music can actually be incredibly emotionally distant.
Oh, absolutely. It can feel sterile, calculated, and entirely cold.
Like algorithm music.
Yes, exactly. It might be technically easy to understand, but because it is highly abstract in its emotional delivery, it gives the listener absolutely nothing to connect with on a visceral level.
It's just floating out there.
Right. Conversely, you can have an incredibly complex piece of music, a piece overflowing with the metric modulations and quarter tones we've been talking about, that is intensely, undeniably physical and engaging.
Which is the ultimate triumph of Angine de Poitrine.
Yes. They succeed completely and totally because their immense complexity is never once presented to the listener as homework.
Homework. That is the exact right word for it.
You are not being asked to sit quietly with your arms crossed and solve for X.
No one wants to do that on a Friday night.
No. The complexity is presented entirely, purely as movement.
This perfectly synthesizes the band's highly unusual, incredibly potent appeal.
It's a very specific kind of magic.
It is. The listener is granted a profound sense of relief. You are explicitly relieved of the burden of having to understand everything mathematically.
The band is not demanding your academic credentials at the door.
Right, they just want you to move.
The only requirement, the only thing asked of you as a listener is to simply enter the system.
Enter the system.
And the mechanism for entering that complicated system is entirely physical. Once your body finds the pulse, once you latch onto the repetition of the groove, your ears are finally safe.
You're protected.
You are protected. And from that place of physical safety, your ears can start exploring the bizarre, microtonal, asymmetrical landscape towering above you.
It's like you're strapped into a harness and now you can look over the edge of the cliff.
That's beautifully put, yes.
This is the exact mechanical process of how difficult music becomes accessible. It does not happen by dumbing the music down.
No, the math is still there.
Right. It does not happen by stripping away the avant-garde elements to appease a mass audience. It happens by making the complexity physical.
It is a brilliant mechanism, and it proves that the intellect is often the very thing standing in the way of our enjoyment of complex art.
Oh, wow. The intellect gets in its own way.
It does. When we bypass the intellect and speak directly to the body, the avant-garde suddenly becomes inviting.
Which leaves us with a much broader, truly provocative question to consider long after the music stops playing.
It's a big one.
It is. If a band like Angine de Poitrine can prove definitively that we can access terrifyingly complex systems simply by finding a physical, visceral entry point.
Just by finding the pulse.
Right, by just finding the pulse, what else are we missing out on?
That is the million-dollar question.
Think about it. What other dense, seemingly unapproachable areas of our lives are we locked out of?
There are so many.
Whether it's a dense work of literature, a complicated field of science, or even a difficult, highly layered conversation with another human being.
Oh, that's a great point. Relationships can be just as complex.
Totally. How often are we standing on the outside, frustrated and alienated, simply because we are desperately looking for the theory instead of just searching for the feeling?